Just over 3 years ago, during the pandemic, the Ontario government closed 26 youth detention centres, roughly half the total number. 5 publicly funded facilities remain, along with 20 that are privately run. Recently, all 5 of the public centres were full or over capacity. The centres house youth charged or convicted in violent crimes like murder and armed robbery. Ontario plans to close another youth jail next year, and that has raised concerns over the possible effects. For more on how the overcrowding is affecting youth in the system, we are joined now by Patricia Brown. She is a lawyer based in the Windsor-Essex region of Ontario, and that is where she joins us from today. Welcome to the program, Patricia. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You are a lawyer who has clients in this system. What are you seeing in terms of your practice with this overcrowding?
Well, thank you for actually addressing the issue on your show. We really appreciate that. I can tell you from my personal experience with my clients, it's not just clients that are facing dangerous charges. These are also clients that are awaiting bail and awaiting sentencing, not necessarily for violent offenses, but sometimes they find themselves back in custody because they breached previous release order, or they couldn't be released because they were denied bail at a show cause hearing. And so there are some offenders that are not charged with, murder or firearms offenses, but find themselves back in the juvenile detention facilities because of other types of offenses as well.
So as I said, in 2021, Ontario closed 26 youth detention facilities. What impact have those closures had on youth in the system and the system just generally overall?
Well, you're seeing a lot of issues that are arising. So first of all, our particular area, Windsor-Essex County, our youth detention facility was closed. And that was unbeknownst to a lot of people. And our young people, when they were arrested, they were taken to outside of our jurisdiction, hours away. So if we did for a bail hearing where they were arrested in Windsor, they would have to travel out to the Hamilton or different jurisdictions to be housed. And then eventually when they had a bail hearing, if they were released, their parents would have to drive to those particular regions outside of Windsor-Essex County or Chatham-Kent to pick up their children if they had the financial means to do so. And so it's posed a problem for young people and their parents to get access to them. Certainly, there's difficulty even accessing counsel. There was a time where you could just go to the facility or meet with the child or the young person at the facility in Windsor-Essex County. That's not a thing. You just have to speak to them over the phone, or if they can set up some type of Zoom call, then that's how you would try to access your client at this time.
And so what's your message here? What would you like the government to do here in terms of this overcrowding situation and these closures?
I think the ministers have to get together and they have to really talk to each other about certainly looking at youth and how children are being treated in this particular system. Remember, the criminal code and our criminal justice system, there's a presumption in our criminal justice system, there's a presumption against custody for young people. And so we want to encourage more extrajudicial sanctions, youth diversion programs. We want to continue to encourage that. We also want to consider custody to be the last resort for children and youth. So if a child reoffends and their bail, they breach their bail, we shouldn't automatically go, okay, we're going to seek their detention. We really need to figure this out. So they think the ministers do have to get together. I ultimately would like to see another facility opened, or our facility that we had in southwestern Ontario reopened for our youth in this jurisdiction.
The NDP in Ontario have said that, this overcapacity puts undue pressure on staff and youth in a precarious position. Do you think that some of these young people that are in some of these overcapacity facilities right now are at risk?
Oh, yes. For example, last week I was dealing with a situation where I had a young offender who's a First Nations person. He's Oneida First Nations. And this young man started to build a rapport with the staff that he was originally housed with. He couldn't get bail because he was already out on bail. He was denied bail when we went again. And while he was housed in one particular youth detention facility, it was overcrowded. As he started opening up and being more receptive to counseling and starting to address some deep issues concerning his mental health, he was transferred. He was transferred due to the overcrowding issue and was not able to access that relationship that he was, building with that staff member. And so now he's moved into another facility and he's got to start all over again. And the idea is, how is that good for his mental health, right? We're dealing with children here, and children they're not just born bad. They need the support, they need counseling. And sometimes in these detention centers, the social workers and counselors and staff are there for these kids. But if they're overwhelmed and they're not getting the support they need, and the kids don't have access to them that they should, then you're going to see a disservice to these young people. And I'm certain this is going to have an adverse impact on their mental health.
So what do you think happens here moving forward? And in the interim, what are you telling your clients in terms of how to deal with this, and the parents that you have to deal with as well?
So what we work with parents to support them. And, sometimes you have parents and families who are newcomers, and unfortunately the child gets into trouble and they're not familiar with our justice system, and there's a language barrier. So we do our best with the help of interpreters to assist them in navigating the justice system. Certainly, I continue to fight for bail to get them released from custody, and work with the Crown Attorney in our local jurisdiction to see that, custody is not the answer here. Right. Let's work together. And sometimes I need a judicial officer or a judge to intervene in a pretrial and say, you know what, this is enough time, and let's go on probation and let's work through the resolution of the matter. But if the child is going to remain in custody for their trial, on a more serious matter, I think that's where you're going to see us having to make some serious decisions. And I think our leadership is going to have to take a second look at this. And we will see if they do that indeed, and we will be in touch again. Patricia, appreciate you being on the show tonight. That is Patricia Brown, a lawyer based in the Windsor-Essex region of Ontario.